course, the Royal Sovereign was helicopter. That was the first helicopter reliefs on the Sovereign. The Bristows used to do it before this helicopter. They used to land you on New Haven Beach, then they got organised and you went from Shoreham Airport because of fire control. So that was the first helicopter reliefs from the Sovereign.
And the Sovereign, you say you saw it more or less being built?
I was with it being built, yeah. I was with the contractors 11 months on the beach at New Haven.
That must have been an odd posting, didn't it?
It was, yeah. I used to have weekend leave and go back Monday and go home Friday, you know. It was like office hours. You just kept things going, you know, with the contractors. And,
you were sort of posted to a lighthouse, but there wasn't a lighthouse built.
yes, in a way, as you were working up and getting used to the equipment, and then you had to store the place up gradually, and off we went. I haven't got dates to hand, I have got them, but the base was towed out to the Royal Sovereign site on the Safe Bank, and the winter set in and the top had to be towed down to Portsmouth until such 3 or 4 months, February month I think it was, we had to be towed back up, placed over the base and jacked up. So it's quite an experience really. Duke of Edinburgh, the master, he flew his helicopter out to visit us. That was quite interesting. Things went there. We had the coat of arms from the light vessel, that was put on the Sovereign Tower. That was a one-off building. They were going to build more, I think, and the Lambie boys came in, and that squashed that idea. Christianity Nielsen's built it. They were going to build a steel structure, and they said they could build a concrete structure and steel combined for the same price, so they're quite a nice building really.
What did you think of the inside then?
Oh, it was all balanced out, as you can imagine, you know, for weight. End room balanced the water tank out, and the engines balanced the rest of the building. It was all balanced, and the tower all had to be balanced, and we had a little bit of trouble jacking up because they were drinking our water, you see. Our weight was getting used with the contractors' builders, you see, and we had to get the Patricia, she was passing, and give us some water, and then they had it in barrels. They couldn't pump it to us, you know, the old Patricia. And anyway, we eventually got jacked up, and everything went well after that.
And what was it actually like to be in bad weather, you were saying?
We had one bad spell. We had over a 70 knot wind, took away the deck lockers, and it used to trip the light with a vibration. Used to be that sort of trouble.
Took away the lockers, did you say?
Yeah, deck lockers we had on deck.
What?
Lockers, they were, they contained safety gear for the helicopters and that, and rescue gear, you know.
Was that blown away or washed away?
Blown away, yeah. No, they got took away.
Did you get much seas up that thing, or?
Got up to the radio room once, splashing up. I wouldn't say it was an actual sea. The place was built for a 500-year wave, you know, so it was all planned out. That was the only real sea I saw there.
What was it like inside it in the storm, and did it move like a tower?
Yes, oh yeah, it was quite frightening. And at one time we had the it was a yacht race going to France, and one got stuck underneath us. Woke us all up. We wondered what was happening. We thought the foundation had gone, the casing, you know. Opened the workshop door and it was always sparking. The masthead lights were sparking against the ironwork around the lighthouse. Got in touch ashore. As it happened, we were having a new radio telephone put in at the time, and I'd get the radio mechanic out to connect us up to get the message ashore. We had the VHF telephone as well, and they launched the lifeboat and contacted Coaster, the motor vessel Dublin, and I think the yacht's name was Battle Axe, I think, Battle Cry, and she dismasted. She let go of her mast, shed her mast, that was hanging underneath, and she was going down channel, and the lifeboat chasing her, and the little coaster. So, and that ripped a lot of the what shall I say, the walkway around the lighthouse away, and that would be rebuilt, which must have been a job really because it was suspended out. Then I left the Royal Sovereign there, so I never saw the completion of that. Mr. Vennings, he was the engineer in charge of that job, but it must have been a feat to carry out.
You said the storms on that was a bit frightening inside. What was the movement like then on it?
It used to get jarring, you get a southwest sea, it took some of the fenders away as well, but it was only sheer weight holding it there. It wasn't fixed to a rock like the towers, just sheer weight.
So is that
There was a case in there filled with sand, that weighted you there, and I believe the southeast corner used to scour out. They used to put divers down every year just to inspect it, They put a lot of rubble down there to stop the scouring. So we were actually on the bank to replace the light vessel.
Right, there's the door we just came through. We're on the gallery, and up there is the lighthouse. Right, we'll go around the gallery just to show you what it's like. We're about 60-65 feet up here from the water. It's a bit windy today. We're now going past the watch room just in there. Give you an idea where we are. When we turn this corner it's going to be windy and we'll be looking into the sun. That's the way we just came, and we're going back on this side all the way around. That's the only other way up to the deck above. And the object you see coming up on the right, that's a life raft in case we have to abandon ship. Just passing the lounge, and we're now passing the kitchen. So we're on the west side at the moment. We're then going to turn onto the south down there. There's the way we just came, along there. Right, back this way, quite windy on the corner. Oops, that's it gone. Now we're passing bedrooms now, and one's in use, so keep quiet for a while. Right, that's the life raft. We're just passing by my bedroom window. Just passing the mechanics quarters, and then the battery charger room, and on our left is now the battery room. When we go around this corner it's going to be windy again. This is the dark side today. That's where we just came from down there. So around this way, passing that door on the left, which is the battery room. The net's above us, to stop you falling into the sea if you get blown off the deck above during helicopter work, or just get careless and step back and admire the view. The land in front of us to our right is Hastings, and you've got Eastbourne to the left. Right round this corner, that's the one we just came down. Here's the corner, bringing us back to where we started from. And there's the door.
Have you had any memorable storms at sea then on Lighthouses?
Yes, the most memorable was on the Royal Sovereign. It was a gale roughly from the south, and it was fairly consistently storm force, and the wind was often going into hurricane force. It went on for quite a long time, several hours, if not a day or two. And some very large, short, high seas developed. And due to the construction of the Royal Sovereign, it being a stressed steel and concrete structure, it does have quite a lot of flex in it, and it does flex and rattle and bang about quite a lot. And it doesn't give you a very good feeling of security. So I remember that one very well.
So what movements is it doing during this?
The lesser movements of the place, which are common in high swells or in gales, are a gentle lurching and smaller rocking movements such as you might experience on a train. As it gets worse, things tend to sort of rattle and bang about a little bit, and when large steep waves hit the caisson of the station underwater, the vibration is transmitted up, and it feels like somebody hitting the underside of the floor with a sledgehammer.
So quite a violent movement.
Yes, at times. Not so much in an ordinary gale, but in the sort of storm force, and upwards from there, it is quite a violent movement.
In 1991, I did a tour of duty on this lighthouse. I was filling in for somebody that was off sick. I went on board with a Barry Lingwood, assistant keeper Barry Lingwood, and already on board was Keith Simmons acting as keeper in charge. Prior to me going on board, earlier on in that year, in 91, we had a storm that was getting into hurricane force. It done extensive damage throughout Britain. 3 million trees were downed. £3.37 billion was what it cost the insurers for the damage done everywhere. Keith said that in the winter the Sovereign moves and jumps around quite a lot with lots of quite violent movements, but during the hurricane it was quite different. Keith said the sea was blown flat, so no big waves, but the sheer power of the wind was really shaking the structure. At times it was so violent that walking about was a problem, as your feet left the ground from time to time. Keith also said he thought he knew all the moves in storms, but this night new ones were invented. He reckons the biggest movements of all was one of whiplash, as the whole tower shook. At night, when it was time to go to bed, you had to try and sleep with one hand holding the side of the bed, as the violent whiplash would literally throw you out of bed. During the early 90s, when I was doing most of my filming of the lighthouses, I tried desperately to get out to Beachy Head Lighthouse to film, but as the place had already been automated in 1983 and the keepers removed, it was getting quite tricky to link up times when I was free from duty and when people were actually going out there doing any maintenance work. So by the time my redundancy caught up with me, I had never gone to Beachy Head to film the inside. However, when I was down in the early 90s to film Dungeness, I managed to slip away and film the outside of Beachy Head from the cliff top just to do preparatory work, thinking that I would get permission to go on board, but that never happened. Fast forward to 2011, and Trinity House had decided they weren't going to repaint Beachy Head in its normal stripes, and they were going to allow it to slowly go back to its original granite grey colour. So along came a Shirley Moff, who instigated the Save the Stripes campaign, and on board pretty soon came a Rob Wassell, and along with lots of other people, they instigated some fundraising and raised £27,000. Trinity House part funded the rest, as the total cost of painting the lighthouse was to be £45,000. So they were then able to repaint the lighthouse, which happened in 2013. Rob was allowed to go on board at that time and photograph all the inside and the work going on. Fast forward to the early 2020s. I approached Trinity House to try and finish my lighthouse quest, and although they allowed me to go to a couple of island lights, they refused point blank for me to go to Beachy Head or the Nab Tower. I then discovered Rob Wassell's website contacted him, and he has very kindly allowed me to use his photographs to enable this video to be completed. I've also had help from the Association of Lighthouse Keepers, the ALK, who have kindly lent me some photographs to use as well. The video starts with some of my video footage of the outside of the lighthouse, which I took in the early 90s whilst I was down filming Dungeness.
Well, Beachy Head, I mean, that was in my estimation, that was a real lighthouse. I mean, you had the IOB light, the fog gun. We had a very good skipper, and AK there, so you fitted in well. The beauty was that once a week you could get ashore for your groceries. You rang up the butcher in Meads and the grocer, the post office. They had everything ready for you, so you just nipped in. You were only allowed one tide, so you'd nip in, get everything together and get back again as quick as ever you could. That was the beauty about that, because you could get fresh veg every week, fresh bread, you know.
What sort of year was this, era?
Oh, well, I've been in about 12 months then.
So still in the 50s?
Yeah.
So what were the conditions like? You didn't have electricity, did you?
No, we didn't have electricity, but we did have the wind generator for the TV.
Yeah.
The people in Eastbourne bought us a little, I think it was a 9-inch Echo TV, and they gave us 4 6-volt car batteries, and we made some boxes up to carry them in out of old charge boxes. And while 2 were away and these cars being charged, we were using the others, but it only allowed you an hour's viewing every night, mainly the news and one other programme, and then that would be it until, I mean, if we had a ways and means of getting them into Meads, where we used to take the old radio accumulator to be charged, fair dues, you know, we could have had it done. But who's going to cart 2 car batteries along the beach along there, you know, right up into Meads? If it had been done by boat out of Eastbourne, right round, you know, to the lighthouse, it'd been okay. But I enjoyed Beachy Head. I think it was a good lighthouse.
So does that mean you had tilly lamps and stuff like that?
Yeah, the old tilly lamps. In the winter, it gave the lighthouse or the kitchen and the tower that little bit of extra warmth. But in the summer, when you had to have the windows open and the old moths were round the lamp, it was a bit different, you know. I mean, the fog gun, that was a bit frightening at first, because you see at Harwich they had one rigged up in a yard there, but you was only allowed to use detonators, was the instructor. So when you first went out to a real lighthouse with real charges, you know, and you bang one of these, I wonder what the hell's gone wrong. And especially being under Beachy Head with all the cliffs echoing it, you know, it just multiplied the sound a little bit more. But yeah, it was interesting.
So what's the routine for sounding for fog then? How do you go about it? With this?
Well, the routine was that you were on lantern watch, so you'd have to go and call out the guy who was on fog watch, you see, who was like practically day off.
Yeah.
So you were ending up doing like a double shift. If it was foggy in the afternoon, you'd put the light on an hour earlier than the normal light-up time. If it was still foggy in the morning, you'd leave it on an hour longer. Leave the main light on. But when you finish your lantern watch, when you put the light out, then you take over the fog watch and the other guy would go back to bed or wherever. It was easy, you know. Some people complain. I know
I think, was it Eddystone? I think it was the Eddystone. They used to they had outside loading, where you had to load the charges on the outside, where Beachy, you just had a couple of little hatchways and you just open them up, put your hands through and you could get hold of the tumbler and clip your charge on and wind it back up again. But you couldn't fire a charge while the arm was down. The only time that would fire was when the arm was absolutely perpendicular and then it made contact at the top.
First station, well, after Dungeness, Beachy Head was an IOB, and Alderney was an IOB, and then back to Beachy Head, and I was at Beachy Head when they converted the station. Because at Beachy Head, when I went to Beachy Head, there was no electricity at all. It was still a redone cooker, tilly lamps, and all paraffin and clockwork. There was no, it's like Black Hole of Calcutta on a night.
So when was that? What year was that?
That would be 1974.
So what would their normal works be like there then? What did you have to do?
Well, you had to sit in the kitchen all the time because there was no power anywhere. So there were 2 tilly lamps in the kitchen and a ray burn. So the 3 keepers stuck in the kitchen. You used to get it was very what I call snug, if not red hot. But anywhere else in the tower, you couldn't go anywhere else because it was a torch job, crawling around in the dark. Yeah, and every hour you had to go up and wind up.
So I take it was days of bucket and chuck it as well.
Oh no, they actually had a toilet there, and it even worked, which was a bit of a luxury for that tower rock. Yeah. But the beauty about Beachy Head was on the low tides you could at least get outside and maybe once a fortnight have a walk into Eastbourne, as long as you were quick. It was a good brisk hour's walk. Grab the mail, a bit of groceries, and march back before the tide cut you off again. I joined just at about the right time when it went. I joined at the time when it went from 2 months on, month off to 1 month on, 1 month off. I think 2 months out on some of these places was. Well, looking at some of the old guys, I think they were a bit stir crazy at the finish. Yeah.
How was it like to grub up for that amount of time?
Well, I mean, it wasn't too bad. Vegetables were the main thing. You got to change over at the middle of the month, but diet could get a bit bland and monotonous, especially somewhere like Beachy Head. There was no power. So all I had was 2 tiny paraffin fridges, so there was no freezer facilities. So after about a fortnight, all the veggie got a bit withered up. So you were sort of basically the diet of the dreaded Dutch white cabbages and swede and spud. Whereas it was nice, but yeah, it could get a bit monotonous, your diet. I think nowadays everybody's got freezers and microwaves, and people are a bit more ambitious with their cooking. Or look at some of the concoctions you see, because now when we all cook for ourselves now, some concoctions look a bit ambitious, but I don't know what they are.
So the meat then, you didn't have fridges in some of the places for 2 months. How much did the meat?
Well, they had paraffin fridges, and it was to 10 up high, and they would freeze, but you were pretty restricted.